Thank you for the introduction and good morning, everyone in the audience. We really appreciate your being here, and we also appreciate the chance to speak with you. And we look forward to your feedback, questions, or suggestions as we go through this panel. This is probably to me, the most exciting panel that we could have for this session. I know we all say that, but now we have the people that are actually doing the business with the customers today. A lot of this is focused on the future. We need that, and people are trying to figure out what it's going to be. But if you want to know what it is today and what it's going to be from someone's eye that's doing the business with customers now, it's this group of folks. I'm really I'm honored and pleased to be with this distinguished panel. And I'm going to introduce them now. First of all, Bryan. Dan is the general manager of Ricart to Business with Ricart, the auto group, and Ricart Ford in Columbus, which is one of the largest operations of commercial and fleet and truck. In fact, a little secret, in 1978, I was the Toyota general manager in Cincinnati. And we were starting to sell our trucks, and I went to Ricart Ford to figure out how we could sell more trucks and see if they could become a dealer. And I was surprised to see they sold more trucks at Ricart Ford than Toyota did nationally at that time. And so I know, Dan, you've kept that position, but we're honored and pleased that you're here as part of this. And we've got Norm Gilbert, who's the commercial manager for AutoNation Ford in Memphis. And Memphis is a great market, and it also, as you know, AutoNation is now the second largest, but one of the largest public groups in the country, and it will be a huge factor in the future of our business with the customers. And then we've got Scot Wingo. Scot is the CEO and the co-founder of Spiffy. Now they have perfected the process of servicing, maintenance, and cleaning vehicles remotely at the locations of the customer's desire, as opposed to in a central service department. They have the most experience. And so what we've got here with these three folks is the experience of actually doing business today. We know what customers want and need as we speak. And that's really important because the transition we're going through is such that there's speculation, there's an investment right now of billions of dollars that's going into the technology, into new vehicle designs. We've got new manufacturers coming. We've got a significant era change that's, as we heard from the previous speaker, as important of the transition from the horse-drawn carriages into IC motor-driven carriages. And that's happening to us after 100 years. And as we do that, the thought, the design of what we're doing is based on a commitment to sustainable transportation into the future. We all recognize that at some point, whether it's the carbon-based fuels or oil or the environment or for many reasons, it's really hard to sustain adding, and we're adding 100,000 vehicles a day to this planet's operation globally. We're actually adding what one assembly plant makes in a year, a day, as new parts of the world adopt cars, middle class evolves. When you think about the load to the earth and the effect, for us to have sustainable transportation, we must find a way to do it where it doesn't have a harmful effect on the earth, or it uses a resource that can't be renewed. That's sort of the basis that's driving all this. Now, all of the people that are trying to get into it with the technology and the innovation, they see clearly how to do it, but the customers, the reality of the infrastructure hasn't caught up. So we're in this kind of period of disillusionment. And it's up to us to push through and find the solutions necessary to make this work for the customer. And that will be the great contribution that we're going to make as this transformation occurs. And that will happen no place better than with this group. Now, our subject is to try and talk about this transition of what the dealership providers change will be as we move into this era. In my mind, it changes the dynamic of our business. Traditionally, you measure the auto business by the number of cars sold times the transaction price. So, we did $800 billion last year. If you look at the sales of 13.5 million cars at about $36,000. That's the way we've been looking at it. This new era is not based on how many cars we've sold. Sort of like when they moved from having cameras, it wasn't how many cameras you sold, it's how many rolls of film that you sold to put in the cameras. So how much can we generate revenue-wise per mile driven of the fleet of vehicles that are out there? And that's what this transition is. That's mobility. And we take responsibility for mobility. Actually, if you look at what I call MRO, which is maintenance, repair, and operations, sales, then maintenance, repair, and operations, we take the responsibility for the vehicle fleets. We take responsibility for our customers to make sure that they get what they want, that they purchase what they need, that it's delivered, it operates, that they can develop their routes, it fits their geography, it fits their use case, and it allows us to retain them as a customer. The difference in this model, it's a relationship, it's not a transaction. And after the sale is when the bulk of that relationship occurs, not to achieve the sale. And that's really that transition we're going through. And frankly, the average dealerships in the United States are still on transaction and selling cars and ringing a bell every time they make a sale. The place it's going to occur the first just is fleet and commercial, because it's business to business relationships. And so that's sort of what I want to talk about with our group is, as this transition occurs in your business, as you've seen this, how can we help the audience understand the real process, what you've learned, because the three of you are ahead of the curve, and you can offer learning to the rest of the organizations that are watching. And I think that you can also talk a little bit about how you see what the future is. So I've talked enough. I'll shut up because I want to hear from you. I learned from an early age that I have two ears and one mouth. And that's how I learn what's going on in the world. So what I'd like to do is to start maybe with Dan, if you could help us, kind of a sense right now, the current state of the business. And as we see the new technology in these EVs and some of these new types of vehicles being introduced, how do you see them? What kind of demand are you getting? What kind of uses? What is your view right now of where we are on this introduction of new technology?
Well, I think the first thing to address, as you were just questioning about the EV piece, it's been very slow. Certainly, we all know that, as you were already talking about in regard to infrastructure, there's questions there, but we all know that there will be solutions for that, which ties then it directly into the collaboration. And I think collaboration is a word that I've used over and over and over recently, because when you start thinking about whether it's EV, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's everything about it, whether it's some of the technologies that the manufacturers are coming out with, I think we have to work really closely with them. I think the relationship piece that you also already mentioned The relationship with, the business to business has been around for a long time, but I think it's going to require even more of us. I think, especially if we've seen on the Ford side and the changes over the last 3 years, it's evolved more in the last 3 years than I would say that it ever has. And evolve includes just the ordering, how we order from an annualized to a quarterly system, amongst many other things. But I think we have to work together in all facets of it. And I think we have to find out where and leverage, the manufacturers, whether it's the contractors, to help, whether it's infrastructure. But I think it's everything that we do, because I think the challenge for everyone is people. I think it's training. I think it's going to be more important than ever for us to collaborate and help develop solutions alongside with them. And I think the other side of it too is I think we have a lot to learn. We can learn from each other. And so I
Mhm.
think you're going to see more of that for the people that are going to be successful, is the collaborating versus just saying, no, this is how we do it, and versus, how we've always done it comparatively to how we're collaborating and partnering with these people going forward.
It's really a key point. And I guess also, if you look at connecting sales with service and the process, even in a dealership, there's more collaboration that's necessary when you order a vehicle.
Totally, totally agree. And I think that's where, especially if we're smart, we're looking at the service department and looking at items that we can help to potentially identify predictive maintenance things. With what Ford has and where they've partnered with Fleetio as an example, to start looking at and being proactive. And it's weird to think about, a commercial customer's asset and for us to help them save money. And what I want to know is that 82% of Super Duties need brakes at 91,000 miles. So we're then, when it's time for an oil change, we're then proactive with them to try to identify those things before it comes in. And so, whether it's, pre-educating them to where they're approving those repairs prior to the vehicle even arriving, if it needs it, the throughput side of it helps everybody. So the customer's getting their vehicle back, the technician, the parts department, and ensuring they have all the parts that we need. So it helps us with stocking. I mean, and it's truly the collaboration with all the parties involved to try to help keep that asset on the road making money.
Norm, how about from your perspective? How do you see this transformation occurring in your store with your customers, and what's
Um,
the demand?
I think the demand is there. I mean, if you go to any commercial customer and say, if I could save you time and make you more money, is that of interest to you? And everybody's going to say yes. Um, it's beholden on the dealers and to figure out a way using the tools that they have to make that possible for the customer. Here in my dealership, it's a retail centric dealership. The fleet department that I work out of is sort of, we carved out an island to where we work, and we work with our customers, and we all share the same service department. And Dan spoke on about being proactive with the customers. The needs of a retail customer on the service side is different than the needs of a commercial customer.
Mhm.
So what does that mean to the dealership? Well, it means that the service department has to be cognizant of the two types of customer and be able to pivot or dedicate a part of their department to handle our customers, because uh, I sell a vehicle to a customer, to a fleet customer, and that transaction's done, but the service and the maintenance of the vehicle is going to carry on through the life of the vehicle. So that's where the service department needs to step up, be proactive. It's important for me to bring them along so they understand that. And with all the new tools coming out with the OEMs now, it's sort of like drinking from a fire hose. So the OEMs, they see the potential for the revenue. The customers are ready to absorb it and take advantage of those products, but it's going to be a little painful in the beginning, and we are in the beginning stages of incorporating mobile maintenance. And fleet maintenance services and telematics and all of those products that in the end, if incorporated correctly, uh, companies can be more profitable, keep trucks on the road, keep their employees working, and in the end allows me to be an active role, have an active role in their business when it comes to vehicle acquisition and maintenance.
Mm. Oh, that's true. And I guess that kind of brings us, Scott, to your perspective of mobile. How how have you seen the customers' reception or reaction to mobile? It's what they want in terms of convenience. It doesn't take vehicles off the road. And then how can that be integrated into the operation with the dealer's own professional system that they have set up?
Yeah, we started Spiffy in 2014. I come from the e-commerce world, and the idea was we've seen products go digital, and we felt like services would go digital. So we started Spiffy to explore what if we took services around the car and made them a digital experience. And we started with consumers and what you guys would call the retail world, doing mostly residential and then office parks. And then we introduced with washing. So we started with wash and detail. And then we introduced our second service, which is oil change, and that had the serendipitous effect of unlocking fleet or commercial for us. Today, if you look at Spiffy, we are 85% fleet, and what we hear from our fleet customers is they just like consumers. And one thing we learned in e-commerce is a lot of people feel like the retail and commercial world are vastly different, and they certainly are. But at the end of the day, there's a person at both of them, right? And they have the same desire to be more efficient and to improve the systems that they're working on, be that their personal ones or their work ones. So the same reason a retail customer loves the mobile service, because they're busy people, is super convenient, and they can do other stuff while it happens, is one of the same reasons that fleets or the commercial side loves this service. And really, it comes down to, in ways, it's amplified with commercial because they have an economic incentive to have their fleet on the road or more utilized. So many of the fleets we work with, they know a number. So a rental car fleet will say, if a vehicle's down, I'm losing $100 a day. An Amazon delivery professional is losing $300 to $500 a day, and all the way up to some of these plumbing and HVAC like vehicles, they're losing maybe $1,000 a day if that vehicle's down. So in their head, this meter is running, and the faster, and then at the same time, as you guys on the dealer world know, the wait time at dealerships is going way up. The economic cost of a vehicle being down is huge. So to the extent you can get the service to the customer as quickly as possible in kind of an Uber-like way, that there's an app or a system that I can self-service. It comes to me very quickly, and it's digital. It's integrated in with my fleet management system, whatever that is, or my FMC, and then it just makes my life easier as a fleet manager. That we find that people really really enjoy that.
Mhm.
And then how it ties into dealers, what we're starting to do is, so at Spiffy, we're at about a 60 million run rate. We do 3,000 services a day. We're 85% fleet, and we're starting to help dealers solve this problem. So they're coming to us saying, many of them have gone through what I would call a failure cycle. They've tried to launch mobile service themselves and not had a great go of it. And the reason why, coming from e-commerce, if you spend all your time in a dealership, it's hard to change a lot of the things that happen inside of that fixed ops, and your natural assumption is you're just going to try to replicate that. Well, what we found is that's not what you do. You don't try to do everything. You've got to pick a couple things that are the best ones in this quadrant of, you can do them mobile without a huge labor cost, and you get a big win with the customer, and improve that customer satisfaction. And they're frequent things that are going to happen a lot. So for us, that's wash and detail, oil, preventive maintenance, and those types of things, and tires. So that's the sweet spot for us. So our first recommendation to dealers is, let's focus on those things and just do those really well. And then, so we're starting to help dealers in a variety of formats. The most popular is where we license our software to them. So they get our know-how, our software, and then our van platforms. We have vans for solving those three things. And then the dealer will operate it either retail or commercial underneath their group name, so with their employees. So we're just starting that at Spiffy to basically take what we've learned doing this direct, putting it into a box basically, and then selling it to dealers. It's still early days. We have 6 customers, but they're really enjoying it and getting really good feedback from their customers.
That's interesting. And one of the things you mentioned that we see is that a difference here as we transition is that people. Organizationally, it's not just more people, it may be different folks. Who do the people that are doing mobile service on your vans, are they employees or are they contract?
Yeah, we do employees, so they're all our employees, and that allows us to vet them. They need to be background checked, and we check their driver's licenses as well. And then we do a lot of training. So we really want to train them on, and in the traditional dealer world, you have a service advisor, which is the customer facing person, and a tech, and then an ASE certified mechanic. And you usually don't have the mechanic talk to the customer. It's inefficient, and they're not really trained for it, right? They're not a customer service person. With us, we have a technician, so it's more the equivalent of what you would get at a quick lube place. So this is someone that's mechanically competent and been trained on these things that don't require an ASE certified mechanic: oil change, tires, and washing. And they're trained on the equipment, and then we use software and other tools to make sure there's checks and balances. And then we train them on customer service because they're out there talking to the customer. And then that's who we have as our ambassadors and our technicians out there every day. And just to give you an idea of scale, we're in 45 markets, 30 owned and operated, and 15 franchise, and then we're in 6 dealers where they operate it with their employees and their brand. And we have, across our network, we have over 600 technicians and about 300 vans every day. And we process over 3,000 services a day.
Wow. Dan, from your standpoint, organizationally, are you looking for a different kind of people to help support you for the future than what you have? And how are you doing that? Right now, the hardest thing we're dealing with is finding the right people
So for mobile or for just in general?
in general.
I think, well, I'll speak specifically to the mobile piece. I would, echo what Scott's talking about, with those customer facing people. And, we have a little bit, a different piece with, recalls as an example, that we're doing. And so those guys, the goal would be, obviously you're out there doing recalls. And that's really how our mobile service piece started 4 years ago was, we're not too far from an auto auction and we were going down there to do recalls. And since then it's evolved. That was about the time the retail side was, focused on the mobile piece. And then they were struggling with it. And then we took it over, and from there, it's been, from the fleet standpoint, it's been a game changer. It's an opportunity for us to win customers. Something as simple as a recall, but it turns into more and more and more. And we're looking at it from its own division, and it's doing nothing but growing. We have 4 vans, 4 guys, and like I said, it's continually growing. I think on the other side, just in general, just with people, and we're going through a transition right now where we're really redoing what was known more of a commercial account manager as to more of a commercial sales consultant. Because as I mentioned earlier, with the order banks changing, and again the collaboration piece, we want to make sure that we're looking at this customer from the full service, from parts sales, service, and even the retail sales. I don't think that we have an opportunity, even leveraging our retail sales out of some of the commercial customers, because they have employees that need vehicles. So we're looking at it holistically. And so looking at those people and training them to be proactive thinkers and not just be, and I heard someone say that, that position from the sales standpoint has really devolved over the last few years, because it's been, we've had, it's been a challenge to get inventory. So as inventory shows up, it's like, if you're not going to take it, somebody else is. And so I think we've lost that art of truly collaborating and being a partner, with these businesses. So I think the people that we're looking for now we want people that truly are looking at our business holistically, because my experience has been and seen that, most people are interested in selling a vehicle and not looking at the dealership as a whole, and it can't be that way. And so I think with where we're going, it excites me. It excites me to, interview, newer people that are energetic and understand the vision as to where it is that we're going. And so I think that long term, I think it's going to be the new way that you sell commercial vehicles is looking at this holistically.
Oh, that's interesting. Norm, is that your experience as well?
Yeah, I would say so. There's, I've always said that, I'm not really in the car business, I'm in the people business. And what I mean by that is I'm building relationships. I'm not just looking to sell a small plumbing company one truck a year for the next X number of years. I'm looking to get them the right vehicle and then help them grow their companies. If they're making more money, they're going to need more trucks. And if they're aware that I understand that and understand what they're trying to achieve by growing their business, I can say, hey, here's a product, a service that can help you generate more revenue, which will help you grow and take things off your plate. Because most plumbers, they don't want to do. Most people who run a business are very good at what the business does, but they may not be very good at some of the other stuff. Case in point, fleet management.
Yeah.
So let me take some of that burden. That's what I'm trained to do. And I can be an unpaid employee, basically. Just reach out to me if you have a need, if you've got an idea, a question, let me know. So over time, that relationship is built to where I can be proactive, sort of a word of the day, when it comes with commercial departments working with customers, working with the service department within your dealership to see, how can I give you a tool that'll help you be more profitable and help you grow. And it's been nothing but positive feedback from those customers that are willing to accept it. Sometimes it's hard to crack that egg to say, hey, if you can just carve out an hour in any week you want, any day you want, just to sit down and give me your undivided attention, which is really hard to do. And let me tell you just a couple of things that I think could work for you and just carry that conversation out over time. Ultimately, the relationship's going to grow, and word of mouth is, sort of the heartbeat of the industry still, or for any sales or business. And it's on the uptake for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. And I read an article that said that the owners of the battery electric vehicles that you're selling today, their satisfaction level is 42 points lower than the satisfaction level of the IC customers. And I'm wondering about that. Obviously, it's and also the electric vehicles have about 2 times the number of recalls. And they also don't have the same parts availability all the time. Dan, are you finding that difference with the EV customers, or have you found a way to achieve satisfaction levels the same with those that have delivered EVs?
So based on the number that we have had, I would probably agree with that satisfaction number. So I think the challenge with that is I think we need to be better. We need to be better as far as a dealership doing a needs assessment. One particular customer that stands out to me was, his transits have been really hard to get. That, he was an early adopter because we had one available, and it didn't take long at all before he traded out of it. But I think we need to do a better job going forward of ensuring we're doing a really good needs assessment if it does make sense for them, to have these EVs. I do believe 100% there's applications for it. I'm not an expert by any means, but there are definitely applications for it. And we have to be really good at making sure that they have the right vehicle for the right use case.
Yeah, so it's because it may be not what they want at that time or need at that time for what their vehicle demand is.
Yep.
And Norm, from your standpoint, also, has it affected the IC customer satisfaction? The EVs, have you sold many EVs in Memphis?
I've sold a few. There's still a lot of range anxiety, and the vehicle has to fit the customer. So if it's somebody that's going to be driving 150 miles a day every day, and the vehicle can only do 100 miles on a full charge, that means they're going to have take time out of the day to charge intermittently. So that may not be the right vehicle for them. And I've seen a lot of that. But um, the I've had customers like Dan described, which is it was all they could get. Inventory was so slow. Coming orders were taking a long time. And when it comes to commercial customers, um, 9.5 times out of 10, they don't know they need it until they call you up and say, van just broke, or I need something today. What do you got? And it's not like walking into a corner store and picking a gallon of milk off the shelf. It's always milk on the shelf. There's not always vehicles on the lot, especially ones that the customers need. So some people are getting into electric without really knowing that it requires a different you have to operate it differently. You have to train the person driving it differently. You have to have a little bit of infrastructure. How are you going to charge the vehicle um, when it needs charging? Are you going to do it at a depot back at home base? Or are you going to do it out on the road at any available charger? So the people that have been buying it um, has either been because it's all they could get and they've been working through those pain points in real time, or it's been someone who's already been familiar with electric. They may already have electric in their fleet and they're just adding to it.
Mm.
But I haven't seen anybody um, put one on the road and then throw their hands up like, this was a bad idea. I'm going to get out of it as soon as I can. I haven't seen that personally, but I certainly know from Dan and others that those people do exist. They just might have gotten into it a little bit quicker, not understanding the limitations of the vehicle or be able to quickly pivot to uh, operate the vehicle in a way that works in their business model, be it, range as an example.
Scott, how about from your perspective, the level of customer satisfaction from your customers versus what they were getting from their previous provider?
Yeah, on for EVs specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah, for fleets, it's still very early. We don't see a lot in the fleets. The biggest would be the Amazon fleet with Rivians. They've got a well publicized deal there, and it's been interesting. The drivers like them. Part of what Amazon did with Rivian is really redesign the whole vehicle. So these Amazon vehicles, any door with a hinge will come off after about 6 months. I don't know if you guys have any Pro Masters in your fleet, but if it ever goes to a DSP, it comes back and the doors just kind of like fall off. It's because they're just constantly in and out of the truck, and it kills the hinges. So the Rivians have really nice sliding doors that have been built to last. Much better than doors with hinges. I think the thing that always surprises people about EV ownership on both the retail and commercial side is the tire wear. The vehicles are much heavier. There's not a lot of publicized on that. I've had a Tesla since 2012, and I have personal experience on buying a lot of tires. So the vehicles are torquier, so you end up, literally burning more rubber, and then they're heavier, so then the tires any tires we're used to kind of a 30, 40,000 mile cycle, and you can usually cut that in half on an EV. So a lot of fleets are kind of wrapping their head around that aspect. And I'll echo what the other gentleman said about the charging infrastructure kind of surprises people because, I think initially people we've seen adopt EVs, they undercharger. They'll think, well, I got 5, I'll put 2 in. Well, you really kind of need 5. Unless you've got some kind of a staggering kind of going on with how you deploy vehicles. Most of us deploy on a shift, like an 8 a.m. kind of deploy, and then it comes back for a period, and maybe it goes back out, 1, 2, 3 shifts. And then there's also not enough time between those shifts to charge the vehicles. So everyone's learning how to kind of like what the charging infrastructure needs to look like to support what they want to do.
And I guess that's also part of our job now in our sales and service capacity. When we sell a vehicle, we've got to make sure that we come up with a charging solution that fits their use case.
Yeah, another thing that's interesting in commercial is, so you get your EPA range on here just like an internal combustion engine vehicle. For the retail customer, that varies a little bit with weather, but it's pretty close, right? And then, but with commercial, let's say a vehicle has 200. Well, even at Spiffy, we load up the back of our vehicle with way more load than obviously a retail customer would, and you see that range just really plummet the more you carry. So you really have to. That's something we're gonna have to figure out as an industry on the commercial side. Is there a way we can articulate to the commercial customer? Here's this 200 is without load, and then we haven't been able to find anything at Spiffy that says, all right, if you put X amount of load on there, this is kind of like the linear curve that you face. We've just had to experiment with it ourselves, and we've heard the same thing from other people that are trying to figure this out. How much do you load in it? Is there and then if you think about it like a delivery van, it starts heavy and then it's like load changes over
Yeah.
time. What's that do to the range? So I think we're just really early innings thinking about all that as well.
I think it's one of the advantages that that you have this connectivity and predictive use. So we're going to have data from these vehicles that will allow us to know how to improve the efficiency, how to improve the range, and changing their route. And I guess your software does that, where we can work with them in a holistic way, as Dan said, to
Yeah.
better fit.
That's a huge win with EVs is they're all connected. So you don't have, in the internal combustion engine world, we have this kind of like hack, right? Where most of
Yeah.
them, modern cars now have some telematics, but many fleets are they don't use the OE ones. They put a third party in there, and then you'll run across, we run across fleets that are like, well, those have a geo tab, those don't have anything, and those have, some other thing.
Yeah.
So you can't really get a holistic view. The EVs all have really dynamic telematics, so you can start to look at that data and you can say, here's that curve and what's going on. So we're gonna be able to like iterate faster with EVs than we ever could with internal combustion engines. So that's gonna be a fun, it'll be fun to watch what happens there and how fast it changes.
And that's also for the dealers, for this MRO operation, that you have to become proficient in not only collecting that data, but then counseling, using it to counsel and also to profile for the future customers. But Scott brings up an interesting point about tire wear and also brakes. And the issue really is for the future of service profit in your operation. EVs are known to require less service. In fact, based on the Tesla model that's out there, the actual Tesla is about $4,600 of maintenance over a 200,000 mile use, versus an IC, which is $9,300. So it's less over a 200,000 mile useful life. It's about half the amount of maintenance cost required, and that's going to have some impact on the way the service department operates in the revenue stream. The other side of that, though, is that the EV batteries last about 300,000 miles, and they're about $7,000. And so, if you look at the battery as a source of revenue, yesterday we were talking with the Mitsubishi Finance Group, and they're selling cycles, and so basically you get so many cycles out of a battery, and you can monitor that. And replacing batteries is going to be part of the service revenue. How do you see, Dan, the change in the model for profitability and operation of your service department to grow the revenue and grow the profit?
If you go back to stats, I believe that have been around forever, that that people are 73% more likely to buy a vehicle with you, their next vehicle with you, if they've serviced with you 7 times. And so I think about the service cycles of that. I think it's a greater opportunity to have better retention with your customer, because whether we'll call it all of the independents, we'll leave it at that. All the independents that are kind of chiming right now about wanting access to technology and data and so on, to try to get more service business for the future for themselves. I think it's a really good opportunity for the dealerships.
Yeah.
And I think we'll figure out a way. I mean, dealerships, they've survived this long, and there's a whole lot of profitable dealerships out there. We'll figure out a solution in the future to ensure that, we're making the profitability that we need. I also, though, think the profitability, when you think about whether it's salespeople or service people, I think it's gonna, the traditional model is gonna continue to evolve just the same. And so I think that, from a overall dealership profitability, I think those benchmarks are all gonna evolve. And, but I think at the end of the day, though, back just to the EVs in general, I think we're gonna figure out a way to ensure that those cycles, yeah, they're not, I mean, look at oil changes, years ago, oil changes were every 3,000 miles. Now you look at the oil change, reminders, and, you could have a vehicle go 13,000 miles before it's, ready to come in. So I think that, I don't know, I don't think that we're gonna figure out good ways we're gonna build a better model, I guess, as the future goes on, but I think we're all gonna be just fine.
How about from your perspective, Norm? How do you see the forward profitability model working with the EVs or other powertrains?
I think EVs are going to be used as bit of as a gateway drug, if you will, since we're in the beginning stages of it. And for those people that are willing to get in on the beginning, it's going to help build a relationship with the dealer. Like Dan mentioned, the more touches you have with a customer, the stronger that relationship. So it doesn't really matter what you're selling, you're going to be selling something, whether it's another vehicle, whether it's a warranty of some kind, or just preventative maintenance in the service department. So as EVs get better, the price point per kilowatt hour is coming down, the capacity is going up. The OEMs seem to put manufacturer warranties on the batteries themselves to alleviate any worry from the customer that, if the battery goes out and I got to replace the whole battery, that's, a huge percentage of the price of the vehicle. So alleviating that, the EVs are going to get better. They're going to be incorporated more. Infrastructure is going to get better. And dealerships will always find a way, like Dan said, to find a way to find a profit center in working with the same customer, just helping them do what they need to do, and in turn generating revenue for the dealership as a whole.
And also, Dan made another good point, and that is that in the beginning, at least, there aren't many independent service shops to fix EVs, and that the tools and the knowledge. I guess they need rubber gloves, but beyond that, you have a pretty good lock on those vehicles, and especially all the recalls. And also, EV parts are more expensive because they don't have the scale, and they don't have old parts. A lot of them are new. So I think that there's going to be a solution there, but it's probably more about competing for the customer's repeat business and that per mile. Have you had any experience yet with the connectivity with selling the fleet customers on any kind of a system like where they have to pay for at Tesla, for example? I think they pay like $190 a month for the semi-autonomous drive if they want the full deal. Have you had any of that experience, Norm?
I have. I have worked with small fleets, which I would call less than 50, and large fleets that are 50 to 100 vehicles in operation. And the product's the same. The interface with the vehicle is the same. And the folks, once they see how simple it is to get that information that they can take action on, whether it's the behavior of a driver or the condition of the vehicle, does a warranty come? Then you'll see that information in the telematics. Is it low on charge, or did someone forget to put it on the charger if you're talking about an EV? So all that information is there, and you can easily take action on it. It's just not drinking from a fire hose of information. It's what you want, when you want it, and lets you take action on it. And from the small customer to the large customer, they very quickly see that it was money well spent. Ford Pro has, they do it per VIN. and you can bundle services. So you could have telematics, you could have fleet services, fleet management services, you can have titling services, bundle it all together. And, like the commercial says for insurance, you can save money by doing that. So you're spending, but you're going to get hopefully a return on your investment. And that's exactly what it is. And if you can show the value of the product and anything you're selling, in this case, data collection pieces, then it's only going to be a win for everybody.
And if I could add, Jim, to that,
Yes, please.
I think that, fleet management companies and leasing companies have, they've made a whole heck of a lot of money over the years doing some of these things. And I think the service piece of this, and I've continued to use the word collaborate, 90% of these businesses don't have a plan.
Mhm.
And so I think for us to be, collaborating with them to help them build plans, help bring things to their attention, the things that they didn't know. Because what, the stat that I heard from Ford was that, 40% of fleets are 25 units or less. Do they have the wherewithal to pay somebody to be a fleet manager? So how do we work with them to be able to utilize all of these tools and all of this data, whether it's driver behavior, whether it's fuel usage, whether it's idle time, any of those things, and then you throw in the predictive maintenance piece. I think anybody that embraces those technologies is going to be that much further ahead than everybody else, because again, they don't have a plan. They don't know what they don't know. And more often than not, the owner operator that brings, the vehicle in for service, he's the one that's the decision maker on, spending X dollars on a truck. And it's baffling to me that, this guy that's got, 40 employees and 50 trucks, and he's the ultimate decision maker. So I think the better off we are at helping them, and guiding them, because, we're not experts in driver training. We're not experts in asset utilization. We're not experts in any of these things. But I think with some of these tools and things that we're learning, that if we take them out there, to almost be a consultant to their business, help them think about legacy planning. I know that sounds crazy to think about, but I think the better off we are at providing service to these customers, that's what will create long-term retention.
Yeah, you've got it. And that's an MRO. That's a sales and MRO operation. And that's exactly, I think, what everybody needs to recognize: the gap between their current business model and their current people and structure and organization and what it should be as you just described it. And that filling in that gap is the plan necessary strategically to satisfy customers in the future as this transition occurs. From a standpoint of the business itself, do you first of all, how are inventories right now? Are they beginning to catch up? Are you still constrained by inventory on all vehicles and then on EVs in particular?
For me, it's across the board. Just speaking on the commercial side, which is going to be cargo vans, cutaway vans, and super duty trucks, heavy trucks, class 2 to class 7. It's still hard to get inventory. Pre-COVID, I would say any fleet customer or any commercial customer, they could, if it wasn't on the lot, they could order it, and they would see it within 2 to 4 months, depending if it had an upfit or not. Now, at least Ford has put constraints on what a customer can order based on a quarterly cap. So for a customer that needs 50 units a year, and Ford says you can only order 5 this quarter, and that number may go up or down by a few units in the next quarter, it's really hard for them to have to find the inventory that they need. And I'm handcuffed to what Ford can offer that customer. So that's the whole. It's getting better. We're starting to see vehicles get built and end up on the lot. Upfitters, they're clamoring for chassis. They're getting pull inventory that we can pull from. So it's getting better, but I still think we're far away from the good old days, if you want to call them that, to where I could satisfy any order. It was just a matter of time. Now that's not the case.
I'm not sure good old days. I don't. This is the good today's days. One of the companies I advise, we're trying to come up with a model where an electric vehicle provides itself more for modular assembly, where they assemble the modules and they can shorten the lead time between order and delivery substantially by changing out kind of building blocks, and they actually can also be done even closer to the consumer for the base units. So that may be helpful. How about Dan, from your standpoint on inventory?
I would echo a lot of what Norm said. I think the hardest part is getting better. I think the hardest part is, the major fleets are awesome to do business with, but you've also got the people that take care of the communities, and those are the people that we can have the ability to continue to foster relationships with and really help them. And I think that's been the hard part is, the local plumber that, he's got 5 vans that, he comes in and he needs, a motor died in one of his transits, and trying to get something to fulfill his needs is still a bit of a challenge. But I think it definitely is getting better. And I think just from an overall operation standpoint, a lot of people, certainly complain about, the quarterly order bank. And Norm certainly is, right. It's a challenge when you're capped at what you can order. But I think just from the operation standpoint, the overall exposure when it comes to floor plan and insurance on all of our inventory sitting around, we should, once we get to I feel like we're going to get to the point where just, the total number of units that we have on ground, if you look at the retail side and what they're pushing to turn right now, I think the commercial side, I don't know if we'll ever get to their turn number, but it's definitely going to be better. The days of having something short of, like Norm was saying, an upfitter, taking time to get that done, it's going to get better. But I don't know, you got to deal with the hand that you're dealt and make the most of it.
That's true. That brings up another question, Dan, that I've been wondering about for all of you. Have you seen any difference in the relationship with the pool vehicles and the upfits on EVs versus ICs? Is there, in terms of ordering them or getting what the customers want or flexibility, is there anything from an upfitter, if I were an upfitter in the audience, what can I take away from this that I can do better as we get into EVs versus ICs?
Well, let me start with this one. Range is directly connected to weight. You've heard it a lot today, and you've probably heard it before, is that as you put cargo into a vehicle, your range goes down. Upfitters are getting better with putting products out there that are aware of this connection. And so instead of using steel, they're using aluminum, or maybe they're using composites. Instead of that steel bulkhead, you put in a composite bulkhead. So all of these little weight savings are going to help with range. And those products are starting to roll out, and it's incumbent upon dealers like myself to understand that and know that they're available. And when a customer is thinking about EV, what are they worried about? Range is usually the biggest one. It's like, well, okay, you need this vehicle and you need to go this far. Instead of using an all steel rack, let's talk about what you actually need in the vehicle to get your job done. And let's talk about the materials used to build that. And here's a manufacturer that makes something that's made for EVs. It's lighter. And so you can still get what you need, get into the EV, and get yourself down the road with an anticipated range that will allow you to go the whole day on a full charge, which is what most customers want.
Yeah. Dan, how about you for upfitters? What is your perspective on the changes that need to be made with the relationship or the process with the EVs?
I agree everything Norm said. And then I think the important piece is awareness. We got to educate, everybody that, and I'm sure Norm would agree with me, the people think they know what they want. I think we have to make sure that we have to ensure that we're giving them and educating them on every option that's out there. And I think it's a responsibility of all the upfitters, all the manufacturers. We all have to be doing it.
Mm-hmm. Scott, you are a upfit user. Mm-hmm. And you have EVs and ICs. What is your advice to the upfitters as we make the transition to EVs?
Yeah, we do our own upfit for most of our vans, and this is like a super tactical thing. But what I've found is our mechanics with ICEs, we do like a lot of Ford Transit stuff. They know where everything is, and they know, they'll go into the vehicle and start drilling and ripping stuff out and doing their thing. With an EV, you have to be more careful, right? Because there's batteries, and it's hard to know where they are. So we've been going through a learning cycle with like e-transits of how are we going to mount things in the back? Where do you drill? Where is it safe to drill and not to drill? So it's a whole new learning process, especially on the base of the vehicle. The sides are still the sides. So that's kind of something interesting we've learned and had to be super careful about. You don't want to puncture a lithium ion battery. That's not a good look.
Have you sold any of your EVs used yet?
We haven't. We're super early in this.
How about you, Dan or Norm? Have you had any used EV sales?
We've had a few. Like Scott said, it's a little early, and some of it is education, because the customer doesn't realize that while there is money in tax credits for certain vehicles, the money's not all the same. And when it comes to used vehicles, it's much different than the new vehicles. Um, typically the mileage, the batteries is still going to be under factory warranty. That's what we're seeing. We've got a few Mustang Mach-E's on the lot. I've seen one transit van, cargo van that has come on the lot. I think that particular customer was somebody that didn't got out of the vehicle because it wasn't fitting their needs on the commercial side. On the other vehicles, they were retail vehicles. I think they were used by a leasing company that they just take them out of service after a certain amount of time, and we end up with them. But I think they're fantastic vehicles used for all the same reasons that they are new, and just need to understand what savings there are, what the vehicle can do, and for retail or commercial, it's just finding the right vehicle for what you need it to do.
Yeah. How about Dan? Have you any experience with used EVs?
Not really. I mean, we had the one that was traded back in our used car showroom sold it, so not familiar with much.
So I could go on like this for 10 hours. This is a great fountain of information that for the audience and everybody, but we're sort of drawing to the end. I do have one last question for everybody, and that is, in 2028, when we do this same panel, 5 years from now, what will we be talking about? Norm, why don't you go first?
2028. So we're talking 5 years down the road. I would say some of it's a wish list, some of it is practical. That the infrastructure has gotten better. Range anxiety is no longer an issue. Price point is not an issue. It's going to be thinking sort of beyond the electric vehicle, because the majority of the vehicles, or the mindset's going to be that an electric vehicle and a gas powered vehicle, it's going to do the same things, get you down the road. So now they're going to be thinking about other technologies. How fast can we charge them? The availability of chargers out in public is going to be not an issue anymore, because part of building a new restaurant means putting in electric chargers. When you're building a gas station, now you're going to be incorporating electric chargers for vehicles. So in 5 years, I think that the infrastructure is going to be not so much of a hot topic and just sort of be more status quo.
Yeah. That's great. Plus, the level of technology development is accelerating. The batteries are getting stronger, faster. They charge faster. They're getting smaller, and a lot of that research is going to give us better performance as well. Scott, how about for you in 2028? What are we going to be talking about? How many thousands is your fleet?
Yeah, I think what we'll be talking about is, and we saw this in e-commerce, so it took a while to get to kind of 5% penetration. But then when we did, we kind of crossed this chasm, and then the demand for e-commerce exceeded the ability to deliver it. So I think that's what's going to happen. In 28, we'll be having a conversation amongst our, this probably same group, wow, can you believe, we knew this was coming and it happened, and now we're at 5% and we're going to get to 15% very quickly. How do
Yeah.
we, it's going to be more of a discussion around how do you scale this up as fast as possible? How do you get the vans to service the customers in this MRO type model, to use your language?
Mhm.
How do we get the technicians, what services we now they're chewing up the preventative maintenance and those types of things and tires. What else can we do there? I think we're going to be having a lot more of those. How do we keep up with this adoption?
That's great. How about you, Dan? What 2028? We'll still be here.
I think just how from an operation standpoint for all of us and everything everyone said, I agree with. But to me, there's three words that come to mind. I've already used one of them, and it's collaboration. The next one would be preparation, and the last thing would be speed. I think everything is going to accelerate and need to be done faster and faster. So I think all three of those words to me tie up our partnership with all of our customers.
It's perfectly said. And that's why this panel, I think, has the key for the future. You are the pioneers, and I think you're making the investments and the changes needed to do exactly what Scott said, and that is be ready for the future. And we're going to make it happen. It's not someone else. I sure thank you very much for your time as panelists. You're just a wonderful group, and you have such great experience and knowledge. And I appreciate the fact that we're able to do this with the Work Truck Solutions, with Catherine and Aaron, allow us this opportunity a couple times a year to provide a learning source for the industry to come together and find solutions or ideas or assumptions that they can use for their own planning. And Work Truck Solutions, sort of what Work Truck Solutions does with their solutions to satisfy, they want to be the software that connects all of the things we're talking about between the dealers, the customers, and the OEMs. And so it's, I think, a really good ecosystem, as Catherine says. So I thank you all very much, and I love the audience. And this is a wonderful subject. We will be talking soon again, and I wish you all the very best. In the meantime, let's sell like hell. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.